And what you're going to find is that most mainstream science geneticists do not think, just like John Sanford said in that little clip, they do not think that these two people lived at the same time, which is very different than what the Bible says, right? But what is really amazing and what we can say, and this is for sure, okay, and this wasn't the case even if you go back to when most of us were kids, okay, if you go back 20 years ago, this was unknown. This was unknown around the turn of the millennium. What we can say is these two facts, which have been said a few times, but this is important to reiterate. All human males descended from one man. That can be shown. That can be demonstrated. It has been many times. And similarly, all human females descended from one woman. Now, of course, like I said, there's this idea, did they live at the same time? Now, I first picked up on this when it was first published. This research was first published in sort of a public way, not just to scientists. I started looking at this because I was super interested. And at that time, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the idea was these two people lived really, really far apart from each other, okay? Like 100,000 years or more separated these two people. The male that all men are descended from and the female that all women are descended from. So the answer basically was, of course not. They absolutely did not live at the same time. Of course the Bible is wrong. What John Sanford said in that video is actually correct. The answer now is, well, maybe. Even mainstream science now has an overlapping dating timescale for these two individuals. So there is a period in which these two individuals might have possibly lived at the same time. Of course, most geneticists are still saying, well, of course, it's almost impossible, but they might have lived at the same time. But almost for sure not, right? This is a demonstration of how the Bible tends to function in history. Okay, I'm going to give you just one more piece. You can write this down in your notes, and this is maybe the biggest point that we're going to come across today. We're going to bring out of Genesis 2. Humanity is one huge family. Actually, for real. Look around at the people around you. Look at the people around you. There's some people who maybe look a little bit more like you. There's some people who maybe look a little bit less like you. They're all your cousins. Actually, they're your cousins. I want to bring this up too because science tends to change over time. As we just saw, even in the last 20 years with when did this original Adam and Eve, when did they live? They couldn't have lived at the same time. Well, maybe they did. The fact that all of humanity is one huge family has not always been the scientific view. In fact, if you go back into the 19th century, so the 1800s, and up through the middle of the 20th century, and you look, go Google this, scientific racism. The main view, the view of mainstream science is that the different races of human beings actually had different origins and are almost like different species. This was the main view. Look how offensive. Isn't this poster massively offensive? I'm going to show you a different one to counteract it. Just in case anybody, I wrote the word scientific racism up here. This is bad, okay? I'm not suggesting what's on this poster in any way. What it's suggesting is basically some races are more like animals than others. And really it's white Europeans who are, obviously the best. That's what this poster is suggesting. And this was the mainstream view of science. This is where you get things like eugenics. This is where you get things like what happened under the Nazi regime in the middle of the 20th century in Germany. Okay? Here's an actual, this is such an interesting look. This is a composite image of male faces from different countries around the world. So what they did is they took like 100 pictures of different men in each country, and then a computer did sort of an average of the faces. So this is the average man in a whole bunch of different faces. What do you think? More similar or more different? Yeah. That looks like one family, doesn't it? Here's another composite view of women from around the world in different countries. Humanity really is one gigantic family. And yeah, we don't get along, just like every family, okay? Just like every smaller family. We don't always get along, but we really are one giant family. Everyone who you meet is your cousin. What? You can marry some of them, though, right? Okay, that is allowed sometimes. Okay, humanity is one huge family. All right, we're in a series called The Good, the Bad, and the Faithful. All of that was very important because today we're taking a look at the story of Adam and Eve. And what comes up for many people today is, were Adam and Eve real people? And you'll see as we read through this story today, the Bible, if you look at it, you read the story in Genesis 2 in a straightforward way. Like, you know, you're not trying to come up with your own interpretation of it. You're just reading what it says. It is obviously being literal. It is saying God made this guy named Adam, and then he made Eve, and the two of them lived together in this amazing garden. It is saying that this actually happened at some point in history. And so that's a big thing to wrestle with for many people in our culture today.